Shock! Germany has declared war on Putin. Scholz has burned all bridges with the Kremlin. Berlin is sending superweapons directly to Ukraine. Europe is preparing a strike that could bring Russia to its knees. Putin is in a panic. Collapse is inevitable. This is the beginning of a new era of power. All the details and major statements coming up next.
Germany has announced plans to expand cooperation with Ukraine and Israel. A new unit will be created within the federal police, which will be dedicated exclusively to future protection against drones. Ukraine will also receive 2 more Patriot systems from Germany by the end of 2025, with support from Norwegian partners.
Germany is one of the leaders when it comes to providing Ukraine with air defense systems. These are accordingly Patriot surface-to-air missile systems, plus PAC-2 and PAC-3 missiles for the Patriots. There are also IRIS-T systems. It should also be noted that in addition, Gepards are being supplied. These again are short-range air defense systems. It is quite remarkable that the German side is creating a layered air defense system in Ukraine.
Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Germany has been the largest European donor of military aid.
In addition to air defense systems, Germany has supplied Ukraine with heavy armored vehicles, including Leopard 2 tanks, Leopard 2A and A6. These are some of the most modern types of armored vehicles in their class. In addition, and accordingly, this includes the transfer of infantry fighting vehicles. Besides this, Germany, in cooperation with Denmark, is funding the transfer of weapons to Ukraine. Lethal weapons. We are talking about the Seo Zuzana.
In September, Berlin launched a new initiative to purchase long-range drones together with Ukraine's defense industry for 300 million euros.
It was Germany that proposed the first innovative formula for supporting the Ukrainian defense industry and funding long-range weapons programs. First and foremost, this concerns Ukrainian ballistics and the production of strike drones. The allocated amount is about $1.9 billion. This sum is sufficient accordingly to scale up the production of strike drones under the Ukrainian ballistic program, better known as Flaminda.
Germany has also moved to the next stage of providing military assistance to Ukraine, which involves Berlin purchasing weapons for Kyiv from Ukrainian manufacturers, as well as joint production.
Germany fully understands that the Russian Federation plans to expand the theater of military operations, including on the European continent. And the first to face the threat of a Russian invasion will be Germany itself. This is the Kaliningrad region. This is the former Prussia, which accordingly is temporarily part of the Russian Federation.
Over 3.5 years of war, the German government has provided Ukraine with more than 50 billion euros in aid. For 2026, Berlin has already included military aid to Kyiv in the draft state budget, as well as measures to enhance its own combat readiness.
If in 2022 Germany spent 1.6 billion euros on aid to Ukraine, then by 2023 this amount had already reached about 5 billion euros. Accordingly, in 2024, this amount had already reached about 7.5 billion euros. For 2025, the planned amount of military technical assistance to Ukraine is about 9 billion euros. Moreover, a separate budget line is allocated for funding the production of Ukraine's ballistic program and long-range Ukrainian drones, with an extended target engagement range.
A year ago, Germany's largest defense company, Rheinmetall, together with Ukroboronprom, opened their first joint facility for the repair and production of equipment. And in 2026, they plan to launch a plant for the production of munitions on Ukrainian territory.
This is the world's largest manufacturer of artillery shells. It was Germany that took on the main responsibility, providing 155mm artillery shells. Moreover, note that it was specifically the German company Rheinmetall that announced the establishment of production on Ukrainian territory, and we're talking about the production of artillery shells and a plant for repairing armored vehicles directly in Ukraine.
Let us recall that Germany has committed to providing Ukraine with 9 billion euros annually for the next several years.
Shock! The end for Kadyrov. The Kremlin has thrown Don onto the scrap heap. Putin no longer saves the master of Chechnya. Kadyrov has gotten himself into a new scandal that could mark the end of his political career. Moscow has distanced itself from him. The elite are silent, the republic is in confusion. This could turn the entire region upside down. Why has the Chechen Tsar become unnecessary to the Kremlin? Watch right now.
The Kremlin's jackal Ramzan Kadyrov is once again losing ground. This time even media lapdogs have bared their teeth at him.
Is that normal? Done.
The Kremlin pointed out Ramzan's place through the mouths of its propagandists after the scandal with State Duma deputy Shamanov, who in 1996 commanded a group of Russian troops in Chechnya. Now in 2025, the general couldn't hold back at the deputy's microphone and expressed outrage at the decision to rename settlements.
Kazakh stanitsas, which have their own historical names. Not only were the Russian-speaking residents thrown out of there at first, now you're erasing the names as well. This is the history of our state. What are you doing? I'm asking you.
To this, the head of Chechnya, who has always flaunted his special status in the Kremlin, reminded Shamanov of the war crimes committed and sent the old man in uniform off to the so-called special military operation. But instead of apologies, a torrent of propagandist filth was poured onto Kadyrov.
I'm addressing you personally, Shamanov. If the word patriot isn't just an empty sound to you, gather your supporters and head to the front lines in the special military operations zone. Let's see what you're capable of. Your vast experience, which you gained by tormenting civilians, is something we know about firsthand. Kadyrov, apparently boasting about the participation of Chechens in the special military operations zone, is unilaterally sending Shamanov to the front. Shamanov? Excuse me, but what right does Kadyrov even have to speculate on the topic of the special military operation? He's not the one who decides who gets sent to the combat zone and who doesn't get sent. We have a commander-in-chief, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. We have military leadership, the general staff. Shamanov is a professional soldier who served his country for many years and was wounded in action. And it's important to note that his awards are earned with his sweat and his blood. That's a fact.
That's a historical fact.
And what about Kadyrov? We've all seen the photos, some video recordings. Kadyrov apparently has a whole gallery of these medals. But what are they really worth? He awarded them to himself. Let's compare Shamanov's biography to Kadyrov's biography.
It seems to me that many people think Kadyrov is starting to weaken now because this is a pretty typical exchange of pleasantries for Kadyrov. The situation with General Shamanov ended with Kadyrov saying his ritual words about how such generals should be put on trial, and then nothing happened. There wasn't even a hint of an apology. And on top of that, everyone knows that Kadyrov is not in the best physical shape and that he's preoccupied with his legacy, with succession in the Republic. Overall, this is a good moment for all those who genuinely hate him, both among nationalists and among the security forces. It's a chance to test Ramzan, to see if by the end of 2025 he still has any real ability to actively resist.
Ramzan tried to show that it's too early to write him off in a rather unusual way. The Russian central bank has just put up options for the new design of the 500-ruble banknote for public voting. Kadyrov mobilized all his administrative resources in the region and started campaigning hard for the image of the Grozny city complex. This sparked an unprecedented interethnic and interethnic squabble across the Russian internet. Not only Z supporters and Putinists got involved, but even the so-called liberals.
It's not just anyone trying to impose their will on Russians, but Ramzan Kadyrov himself. A living, distorted mirror of Putinism. An unelected thug appointed by Putin who shows open contempt not only for Russian laws written on paper, but for any standards of decency at all, who threatens and intimidates. Who, while heading the poorest region in the country, lives no worse than a Saudi sheikh. He hands out palaces and Rolls Royces to his relatives at the expense of the budget. He gives his underage son, known only for beating a detainee in prison, government positions and awards. Kadyrov, with his style of rule, is completely out of step with both society and the times he lives in.
The scandal erupted with such force that the central bank hastily cancelled the vote for the banknote. But discontent is still simmering in Russian society. If before people were even afraid to look in the direction of the clan, now they openly curse them at every turn. Even the Kadyrovites themselves are dissatisfied. For the first time in the past 30 years, the Kremlin did not support them.
In the vast Russian hinterland, a powerful nationalist movement is steadily growing and gaining momentum. A Russian community that absolutely rejects anything except what is Russian. That is why, in the current reality that exists in the Russian Federation today, Ramzan Kadyrov, as an official with special status, with Chechnya, where everything is done in a completely unique way, simply does not fit in. And furthermore, if we talk about Ramzan Kadyrov, as an official, his time is over, so to speak. I see that the goals and objectives set by the Kremlin for the Federal Center regarding the Chechen Republic have all been completed. That is, all goals and objectives have been achieved. It's no secret that the conquest of the North Caucasus as a whole depends entirely on the conquest of Chechnya. Chechnya is now subdued. Moreover, within the territory of the Chechen Republic, that is within its borders, a 150,000-strong group of Russian troops is stationed. These are not just mere conscripts. These are highly trained military personnel who have been specifically and strategically tasked with fully controlling this entire region, ensuring complete dominance. Everything that Russia needed to do before the start of the large-scale war in Ukraine was done with the involvement of Ramzan Kadyrov. As we remember, all the high-profile crimes and contract killings were committed either with the direct involvement of Ramzan Kadyrov or with the participation of people associated with him. This includes Boris Nemtsov, Anna Politkovskaya, and others. Journalists who were killed both within the territory of the Russian Federation and abroad. In other words, the entire set of tasks assigned to Ramzan Kadyrov in this case has been completed. Everything is finished. That is, the project is complete, the contract is over, and now the question is what to do next with Ramzan Kadyrov.
It's amusing that now that very machine, made up of propaganda and special services, which for years created the image of Ramzan Kadyrov, is now devouring him. It is quite possible that the little Tsar, visibly wasting away and living in the illusion of his now lost influence, will end up facing trial. All those feats that were attributed to Dondon on Russian television screens could in an instant be turned into crimes against Russians.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Something incredible is urgently unfolding. Ukraine is preparing a decisive strike against Russia. This will change everything. It's been revealed that Kyiv is secretly building its own mega weapon, long-range missiles and deadly drones of Ukrainian production. All of this is rushing to the front lines. Could this turn the tide of the war? Watch.
As for the Donetsk region, a fierce defensive operation by Ukraine's defense forces continues in the Pokrovsk direction. The Russian army is suffering colossal losses trying to break into the city.
The approaches to Pokrovsk are becoming yet another massive graveyard for the Russian army. Thousands of occupiers are being eliminated on the outskirts of the city and in nearby settlements, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Inside the city itself, the fight against enemy sabotage groups continues as they persist in their attempts to gain a foothold. There, the defense forces are conducting stabilization and counter-sabotage operations, as well as active defense. Thus, since August 21, 2025, Ukrainian defenders have neutralized about 14,000 Russian occupiers. Of these, 8,402 were killed, 5,419 wounded, and 124 captured. Additionally, 182.8 square kilometers of territory have been liberated. Another 230.1 square kilometers have been cleared of sabotage groups. Enemy equipment losses amounted to 1,289 units, including 32 tanks, 101 armored vehicles, 154 artillery systems, 5 multiple rocket launchers, 435 vehicles, 562 motorcycles, as well as more than 4,000 drones.
As for how well balanced the Ukrainian army is in terms of being able to inflict damage on advancing Russian units while also conducting an orderly retreat, I believe the balance here has been maintained. A slow withdrawal as much as possible and inflicting maximum losses on the Russian army. The calculation is that sooner or later the Russian army will not be able to sustain regular offensive operations due to the high number of losses and will be forced to stop at certain lines. The Russian Federation has been tightening the noose around Pokrovsk already, for 13 months in a row. The only area where Ukraine is trying to push back and encircle something is Dobropilya, that salient from a month ago which the Russian Federation managed to bite through. But even there, things are not going so well because the Russian army keeps sending more troops there in order to hold this salient, to maintain this foothold, and to try once again, but this time with much greater forces, to break through into this segment of the front and to tear the Ukrainian front apart.
Meanwhile, Trump, commenting on the war, once again addressed the Russian dictator Putin, urging him to stop killing Ukrainians. According to him, Russia has already lost about 1.5 million people in the war, and these are mostly military personnel.
Stop killing Ukrainians, stop killing Russians.
I think it would be very important right now to finally, so to speak, synchronize our watches with the Americans. In which direction will we be able to move? Because Russia is intensifying its attacks and continues to press on the front, and this obviously creates serious problems. Will we be able to continue effectively countering all these attempts? Especially since the Russian Federation continues to receive support from those countries that have also challenged the modern world order. And so the question is, how much can we hope for right now? That it will be possible to see some kind of peaceful settlement in the foreseeable future? Will Trump really change the approaches and vision regarding how a peaceful settlement can be achieved? Or will it be, so to speak, a different story for a longer-term perspective?
Thus, the upcoming meeting between Trump and Zelensky becomes a key moment on which not only the further situation at the front will largely depend, but also the coordination of military support, as well as the development of strategy, the ability to contain Russian aggression, and to strengthen Ukraine's position in this war.
That's all for now. And for more breaking news from the front, tune in to the next episode.